We're continuing our look at this fanzine called Owl and Weasel. It's from Games Workshop back in 1975. This is issue number 2 from March of 1975. Here's our front page of this newsletter. Again, just 4 pages. Inside we have an article on the toy fair, stock car racing, the war front, some puzzles, an article on cows and bulls, an editorial, comments on Alexander the Great, a crossword puzzle, news from the floor, which I think is the floor of the workshop, an article on Mahjong, and the notice board, which sort of announcements about getting connected to play games. Ian and Steve are responsible for Games Workshop, but credit here also for some of the artwork we'll see from Vicki Jackson and Sarah Bruce-Morga. I'm not positive who drew the Owl and the Weasel originally. I think it's one of these guys. Okay, so here's our first article, which is on the toy fair. And Steve Jackson says he went to this in January. It was the Brighton Toy Fair. He says it basically took over the town, occupied 3 major hotels and the Corn Exchange, and then there's a little bus service you could get around between different locations. Lots of markets for people who were selling things. And he said everybody was really warm, everybody was really friendly, and it was a great event. And he left with a bunch of catalogs for different people who made games. Next, we have the stock car racing Formula One style. And this is a game you play with cards and simulates racing. He is a big fan, apparently. Back to the fair, back to the toy fair. More information there. Get myself out of the way. So then he's got his highlights from the Brighton Toy Fair. What did he see? He's got some information about some of the companies he really liked. Pentangle Puzzles apparently had a 4-foot tall pyramid constructed out of wood to simulate one of their games. Cochrane's of Oxford, Waddington's, Invicta, and others. So basically just a report on the different companies that were there at the toy fair. Then we have the Warfront, and he mentions that Albion issue 50 was the last one of those fanzines out there, and so that was finally shut down. It was run by Don Turble, and he says he's going to start a new thing called Phoenix to take its place. That should be out in May of 1975. Some information about different Avalon Hill games that are out there, and of course a lot of people are playing Diplomacy. Here's an interesting game of deduction for 2 players. It's called Cows and Bulls. He said it looks like a guessing game, but it's actually not. And each of you takes a piece of paper and you write down any 4-digit number. And then you take turns saying any 4-digit number. And if you have a number that is correct and in the correct location, you get a bull. If you have a number that's on the other person's paper but in a different location, you get a cow. Right? And so you go back and you just like, well, you have 2 bulls and a cow or something like that. And you go back and forth until you figure out what the number is. Pretty simple, pretty clever. I like games like that too. All right, now we have their editorial. He points out that they have doubled in size now from 4 to 8 pages. Some feedback on the first issue. One person was complaining that when you cut out the subscription form, you cut the weasel, and they didn't like that. Someone else said they thought the formatting and the printing could be a little bit better. And then people generally want to know what else is coming. And they say lots and lots of information on, on new games. And finally, there may be some commitment to postal games, which of course is very popular at the time. Okay. Then they have a quick review here. I think this is an Avalon Hill game called Alexander the Great. And he recommends this for someone who is, sort of into war games. Here's a crossword puzzle. Again, a simple puzzle. They also had a solution in here. I don't have that on the screen, but they had the solution to last time's puzzle. News from the floor. This is literally the Games Workshop where they make games. And so he gives information. This guy, John, I think his name John Peake, is in there working, creating new games for people, and more of those will come. You can buy Backgammon, Mancala, Nine Men's, Morris, Fenoria, and Go. That's actually made there at Games Workshop. And then there's a quick article here from a guy named Percy Kenyon on Mahjong. And he's a big fan of this game, wants to encourage people to play it. The notice board is an opportunity to contact different people if you'd like to play, and then they tell you what kind of game they're interested in playing, so you can get connected with other gamers. Then they have this little Snoopy figure up here saying, what is this game? And here's a Vicki Jackson's drawing of the owl and the weasel playing chess. And finally, here are their puzzles this time around. We've got a math problem, essentially that's just algebra. Another one of these knot or not, where you, if you pulled the string, does it come undone or is it going to pull into a knot? And then another sort of math numbers problem. Put a mathematical sign between each digit so that it will be valid, i.e. it adds up to 100. And they got some advertising this time. Fringe games, got some different types of games for sale. Your chance to deal in hash, grass, acid, and coke, all legal on the new game, Bust. And then the little information about next issue, which of course is Owl and Weasel number 3. Ian switches over to take over editorial duties, boo hiss. We don't know too much about the content, so I guess you're going to have to wait for that. Again, Railway Rivals, Morphs, games being sold by Fringe Games. This one's Feudal Clans. Makahit, and Produce Your Own Oil. That's our look, short and sweet, at Owl and Weasel number 2. Stick around, and next up we have Owl and Weasel number 3.